Good morning, Monday the 10th of February, little bit of a change of plan. I was checking my diary to see what dates the boat was booked in for its work. I had it in my head it was end of April, beginning of May, but then when I checked my diary it was the beginning of April, so it's cut my plan down by about a month, which means I need to get a wriggle on. And I don't know if you saw the last video, but Skaysbrook Marina is always a place to spend a bit of time. Obviously, common knowledge that the majority of the fish are going to be in the marina, but I can't fish in the marina, so I'm going to fish as close as I can to the marina. And I've gotten up early this morning, I've given the boat a good clean, I've chugged on down to my spot near the marina, and this is where I'm going to be for about the next month or so. So I'm going to be taking my bait boat home today to give it a good charge, but I'm thinking I might put a bit of bait down. So I'm thinking, in order to entice one or two fish out of the marina, thinking about putting a bit of bait in. Not quite sure with it being the time of year, but I'll have a bit of a think about that over the next day. I'm not sure what you think. Do you think I should put a bit of bait down and see if I can entice a few of the fish out of the marina entrance? I'm not sure. I'm in a bit of a quandary right now, but what I do know is I've got that renewed enthusiasm again. I can't quite explain it. Feels like I'm on a new water. Feels like I've got to think about new spots, new strategies, not necessarily new rigs. There is a note to add for anybody that's fishing that Saracen's Head stretch in the summer. While the CRT volunteers have done a great job of trimming those bushes along the towpath margin, and fair play the volunteers, and I'm not knocking them in any way, shape or form, it seems that most of what they've cut they've left in the canal, and I had no end of bother pulling in quite big branches and parts of those stumps that were cut pretty much for all of my stay down there. In fact, I'm pretty sure that recess that I wanted to fish was almost unfishable because of all the obstacles on the bottom of the canal between my boat and that place. So you will notice, if you know that area, if you go down that area, you will notice that I have cleared a lot of debris from the bottom of the canal, but I fear that there's a lot more and not much is going to move that. So for anybody that's planning on spending some time there, do yourself a favour, check out the bottom for wherever you're fishing, because it's full of quite big branches that are quite difficult to move, and I can only imagine you're going to lose a load of tackle. So just a note for anybody who knows the area, anybody that's local to the area, if you're going to be fishing the Saracen's Head stretch this spring, make sure the bottom's clear between you and where you want to fish, because it wasn't for me. It was full of crap. So wish me luck. I will be disappearing off to work for the rest of the day. I'll be coming back to this spot immediately after work this evening. I'm going to be sending a couple of baits down towards the mouth. I'm going to have a bait local to me, and I'm just trying to decide whether to fill it in or not. I'm going to be here hopefully for around about a month, 4 weeks, so I'm not sure. I'm going to have a think about it. So I'll catch up with you soon, and enjoy the rest of your day. Morning. It's a bit cold out there today. Not particularly bad weather-wise. I think we've got a bit of cold wind for the next few days, so try my best to stay inside. It's lovely and warm in here. So just thought I'd take the opportunity to rewind back to 2015, which was probably my best ever fishing year. And it was a year where I was on a few syndicates at that time. But this particular year, I joined a syndicate in Northampton called Little Airchester. I'm not sure what it's called now. It was obviously 10 years ago. And I know it's changed hands since. So I don't know too much about it now. But this particular year, I knew somebody who was on there. And he got me in front of the guy. I got myself a space. So 2015 was a really interesting year for me planning. Obviously, different to when you're fishing close to home. You've got to plan the journeys, you know, I'm talking about leaving work early, getting home from fishing late, possibly stealing a day off work on the Monday, pending what was going on the lake. So yeah, it was all about that. It was managing 2 young children, wife, full-time job, and trying to get some fishing in as well. The first session, I remember it well. We were allowed to do a full week, any time in the year, as long as it was booked in, and that could happen only once a year. So eager beaver me booked the first week in April. Got down there and it was flipping freezing, wasn't it? I knew nothing about the place. I turned up first week in April. I remember it was a cold wind. All week I blanked good style, which was to be expected really, wasn't it? But I do believe that week I spent on there, on my own, with nobody around, paved the way for me to have a really bumper year, because I didn't sit and loll, although I did a little bit, to be honest with you. Fishing for me is part rest, part fishing as well. So I've never been a particularly mobile angler. I've always tended to have favoured the camp up, throw a load of bait out, have a rest, have a jolly, chill out type fishing situation. And it was this particular time in carp fishing where mobile angling really was becoming popular. It made sense on a lot of waters that when the fish were to move, you moved, you followed them. That wasn't for me. That wasn't for me. I didn't have the right equipment. When I came, I always came for a few days. I had loads of stuff, like me comfort, so it was battery, laptop, stuff like that. Just wasn't my style. But again, like the weeks blank in April, I do feel that I gained an advantage from being static. So two things already. The week that I spent in April blanking, I was walking the place, leading about, mapping out the areas. It was quite a weedy. Can't remember the name of the weed. It was a particular one. I've not seen it anywhere else. It was like stalks, but they come through the middle of the water. So it was an interesting situation. There was work to be done to find where those spaces were, and that week in April was just perfect because I could feel where all the crud was, but it was part dead and part young, so my leads were coming through nice and easily, whereas in the summer you couldn't pull a lead through without getting into some sort of trouble. So I spent that week basically scoping the lake that I decided to spend the year on, and there was a choice of 4, and I sort of went with the majority, the biggest one, the one with the most popular one. but I knew it wasn't going to be easy. Although I did feel that over the week I might have picked one up, but I didn't, and it was hard and it was cold, but I learned a lot. So the next session, sort of had a pretty good idea of my options already. I decided on a couple of areas I'd like to focus on. Not gonna lie, they were just the popular areas, but one of the edges I had due to my work situation is quite often I wasn't fishing weekends. I was going on Sunday, and I was able to fish Sunday night, Monday night, maybe Tuesday night. So I was arriving as most of the anglers were leaving, so there was less pressure on the water quite often. I had information on what had happened from other people, so I did have quite a lot in my favour. But it was during this time when I noticed that the anglers were so mobile. They were coming through in the middle of the night, they were packing up, they were literally following showing fish, most of them as well, and that was quite new to me. So immediately early on I felt like I might struggle because I wasn't in a position, I wasn't ready, I wasn't willing to go chasing after fish all weekend and going home absolutely shattered. It just wasn't my style. So I decided I was going to stay static. And the other guys who I got to know on there pretty much said it wasn't going to work, but I couldn't do anything else for that year. Maybe I might have changed it for the following year, but for that year, I'd done my homework, I'd made me plan. It was against all popular advice. I wanted to stick to it. And if I fail on my terms. Well, I didn't fail, did I? I did really well, actually. So I did really well, actually. It was the year for me where it all paid off, where you put a lot of effort in and you get quite a bit back. You know, the thing about the angling that I'm doing now is I'm putting next to no effort in, really, in terms of logistics. I've never had it easier, which is why it's so amazing. And which is why it's quite interesting to see what happens. So, you know, this year, because I'm documenting what I'm doing, I'll probably go at it as hard as I ever have, to be honest. So it's going to be interesting, exciting. I had a clear vision of the lake and where its features were and where I wanted to be fishing. I had all of the areas mapped and wrapped, so I wasn't gonna make any disturbance if I was happened to get onto a swim where there were fish there. I sort of knew exactly where I would be fishing and was able to get the rods out with minimum disturbance. There wasn't a huge amount of information flooded about. The anglers were serious anglers. They were all circuit anglers. There was an element of keeping your cards to your chest and sort of having your own way, if you like. But when you're observing, it's obvious what people are doing. Yeah, so you know there was a lot of observing going on, shall we say? But it was all good. It was all new for me. But what I'd also picked up is there seemed to be a trend of using fishy baits, and in this year of doing everything different, I decided to go with a nutty one. But what I also decided to do, I think, is what unlocked the code and what gave me a real edge. And that was to do with salt. So I at that time, I've always had fish in the tank at home. I've gone through all the different stages of aquariums and marine fish and exotics and freshwater fish and carp in a tank as well, big tank. But at this particular time, I was running a marine tank, so I was running a saltwater tank, and I don't know if you know anything about them, but you have to change the water every few weeks. So I had an abundance and an excess of saltwater, marine saltwater, and I decided to use it. So what I did is I air dried the nutty baits, solid. So they were literally rock hard. So I would air dry them in bulk amounts until they were really, really small, and then I would feed back in some of the marine water that was left over from the fish tank, and I think that's what it was. Because from the get-go, I would say, I just started catching fish after fish after fish, and as you'll see in the pictures, quite big fish as well. I caught consistently over the year. So yeah, it went really well. I had something going on. I had my salty nutty baits. I was staying when everybody was offing. So the fish would be off. I was staying, and by staying, I was the first there when the fish came back up. So I was catching them. So I was sort of like, by staying, I was waiting for the next move down, and that's what was happening every time. It was funny actually, because you'd hear the anglers off in the middle of the night, they'd hear fish boshing at one end, and they would be literally up, packed down, up there, and what they were actually doing is scaring them back down to my end for the morning, and I was picking them up. So it was great. It was really, really, really good fishing. Obviously, one of the more memorable captures was my UK PB, which I can't remember its name. I think it was called the Immaculate. In fact, it was called the Immaculate Common. It was £44 when I had it. And that to this day is my UK personal best. So I'm not quite sure I'm going to beat that on the Leeds Liverpool Canal. It was a great year, a really great year. Great year's fishing. I was on it. I knew what I was doing every time I got there. Even when I knew where I wanted to be and somebody was there, I'd hang around until they'd gone, because not many stayed on the Sunday night. So it was just right. It was just right. And I did have every single capture documented, detailed, bait, time, wind, temperature, everything. But as I've said in previous videos, it was on a phone, a Samsung phone, and I was on my motorbike one day and the phone was in my back pocket. The phone popped out my back pocket and was never seen again. And all my notes had gone, years and years of fishing notes, and I couldn't believe it. And I tried and tried and tried to get online, I got in touch, I tried and tried to get them back, but I couldn't, so I was devastated. So I've got lots of photographic evidence, but I've lost all of the facts, and I can't remember. I remember some significant facts, but I can't remember everything. It was a very, very memorable year because I'd caught quite a few big fish, because I'd done something a bit different on my terms, because of that week's blank on that cold April session. I'd worked the place out for the rest of the year, and it paid off. So that was my year. Well, actually what's quite interesting is that I paid for the second year, did exactly the same and really struggled. So there you go. I had 2 years on Little Airchester. First year I did extremely well with a strategy that I kept up through the year. I was always told the place didn't fish in the winter, it was rock hard in the winter, it closes down in the winter. I always fished New Year's. It was a time where I decided not to go and get drunk and all of that. I'd done enough of that. It was a time where I wanted to sit and review and think, evaluate and plan. So I'd fish New Year's I would always be fishing New Year. One of the mirrors I had on January the 1st at 2 AM. So probably one of the first fish caught, one of the first carp caught of 2016, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, great year. Unfortunately, went and done the same again the second year. I had a real hard time. And then after that, it was time for me to move on. So I'm not sure what's happened at Little Airchester since, but I've got some great memories. I met some really nice lads. Fortunately, lost contact with them over the years. So I enjoyed that chat anyway. It's always nice to revisit old successes, because when you're carp fishing, well, what I've found when you're carp fishing, there's probably more unsuccesses than successes. So it's quite nice to look back on those ones, and hope you've enjoyed the story. Hope you've enjoyed the pictures. Fingers crossed for some carp in the Leeds Liverpool Canal soon. Thanks for watching.